My topic was on drones. So I did my final project on the future of drones. So this page is just an overview. I just briefly talk about the future of drones, talk about how it was in the movie Terminator. Everybody thinks of drones as these things that can learn and eventually take over the world, but at least at this point, it's not gotten to that. Drones have and will have more of a capability to learn and adapt. However, it is only to the point of the person that is programming or teaching the drone. This is my purpose page. So in A, I explained how drones are here to better human life. They are here to make things more convenient for us and to help us complete tasks. As of right now, most drones are still in the military or in college labs. However, some drones have been released to the public, like photography drones. Those have become extremely popular in their ability to take aerial imaging and just take pictures and go places that humans can't normally go. On this page, I explained how drones are not piloted. They don't have a person in them steering left or right, so they use GPS to travel. And this makes them extremely precise because if someone's walking down the road, they could walk 5 steps, or you could have a drone go 5 degrees laterally, and that's going to be a lot more precise than quote unquote 5 steps. And these drones that are used in the military, called UAVs or unmanned aerial vehicles, they patrol enemy outposts without the enemy even knowing, and they can go in specific routes so that the enemy cannot see them. However, they take in loads of information while flying over, allowing the military to gain more data and more information on their enemy. However, drones are not all fun and positive. Some drones can be harmful. Obviously, someone can program a drone to do harmful things, but other than that, drones are not perfect. Like I said, drones can be very precise and fly over areas without the people on the ground even knowing, and they can take in loads of information. This does not only apply to the military, but it applies to civilians. Somebody can fly a drone over Times Square and gather information on almost everybody below them without any of those people knowing that the drone was even there. This brings up privacy concerns and security concerns among civilians. However, most of the drones that civilians do use do not have the capability of taking in as much information as, say, a drone that the military uses. Drones have mostly impacted the military, like I've said. The U.S. military has doubled its spending on drone technology. I think in 2014 it was a little over $4 billion going towards drone technology. And in 2021, it was over $9 billion going into it. This just goes to show how much promise drones have and how the military seeks to use drones in the future more and more. I inserted my survey about how drones have impacted certain people's lives and my video going briefly explaining drones, not going into detail at all. But again, like I said, I talked about the military with drones. Drones, as I've said, are UAVs and unmanned aerial vehicles that can fly through the air and give recon to U.S. troops. Like I stated earlier, they can fly over enemy areas or bunkers, say, and they can take in loads of information that the U.S. military can use against their enemy. They also use drones for BDA, which is battle assessment damage, and they use drones to go into where they previously struck the enemy just to make sure that the strike was successful. In the off case that a strike was not successful, there could be enemies there waiting for US troops to go in to pick them off one by one. So allowing an unmanned drone to go in eliminates the risk of human lives while also assessing the damage and seeing if the attack was successful or unsuccessful. One more thing that the military uses with drones is UCAVs. And UCAVs are unmanned combat aerial vehicles, and they can deliver weapons to the enemy. Um, as I've said, drones are extremely precise. So certain missions involve precision, and these UCAVs use GPS for navigation. So in using GPS, they can allow these drones to go to certain places and drop bombs at certain points that human error could mess up. For the technical aspects of drones, in the first paragraph for E, I explained how most drones are controlled by a human. The photography drones that civilians use have a remote control with two joysticks on it and a screen to look through the camera. And within the range of that drone, the human can fly it wherever they want and almost do whatever they want with it within the laws. But some drones do not have someone controlling them. As an example, there are drones that MIT made a year or two ago, maybe 3 years ago, and they wanted to have the drone jump onto a box and then eventually jump onto two and then three, and they did this test and it was fine, and then they started to mess with the drone and push it over and stuff, and this just goes to show how programming isn't just jump on the box, it's adapting and overcoming. And this drone learned how to adapt to all of the obstructions that the humans were giving it, and it eventually got on top of the boxes. I explained something very similar in F, also at MIT. There was a drone made to open a door and enter a room, and they ran the program. The drone did phenomenally, and then they did the same thing like the boxes, and they started messing with the drone, pushing it over, whacking it, locking the door, and the drone would learn and adapt and overcome. And this is an example of the big idea of programming. And they programmed the drone to open the door and enter the room. However, they also programmed it to adapt and overcome obstacles that may be thrown its way, because as in real life, nothing's guaranteed. Something could come up, and say you're driving to work one day and there's ice on the road. That's an obstacle. And if a drone was not taught to overcome these obstacles, maybe in the future when drones are driving cars, they do not know to slow down on ice, and that could cause a fatal crash. So these students at MIT are really focusing on the adapt and overcome of these drones, and they want them to be able to do the task that they are programmed to do while overcoming outside obstacles that may come its way. One more idea of programming in aerial drones is a sense and avoid program. And these drones are not manned by a pilot. They are not being flown around left, right, pilot looks in front. They're being controlled halfway across the world by the US military and with joysticks, almost like a video game. And this sense and avoid program allows these drones to sense objects around them and avoid them, reducing the amount of crashes. Most of the time, two drones are not going to be flying right next to each other or into each other. However, these sense and avoid programs are made to reduce the crashes between drones. But these sense and avoid programs can also be for birds or treetops, something that may come in the way of drones. Seeing as though drones are not manned and they're extremely precise, people can fly them a lot lower than manned aircrafts. And this sense and avoid program can allow them to not hit anything that may be sticking up at the low altitude that they're flying at. On this page, I explain how drones consume and produce data. They do not really transform or interpret data. However, these sense and avoid programs can take in data and sense what is in front of them to avoid it so that they do not crash. But also, these drones are consuming data as the quote unquote pilot is manning them halfway across the world in some video game like room. However, these drones can consume data as if the person puts the joystick to the left, the drone might turn to the left a little bit. If they pull it down, it might increase in altitude a little bit. These drones also produce data. Most drones have cameras on them, as seeing as though they are not manned by a certain person. These cameras allow them to almost see what's in front of them and below them, and this shows up as a live feed footage to the person controlling the drone. This allows them to take photos or videos of the view that the drone has, and it allows them to transform or interpret the data that the drone is outputting. In drones, there are still some privacy concerns, as I mentioned, in effects and impacts. However, the main concern is data privacy. Like I said before, a drone could fly over Times Square and take down loads of information on anybody that's below it without them even knowing, and it is illegal to take in information and share it without the person's consent. So this brings up a lot of privacy concerns among civilians. And also, the drone itself consumes a lot of data and stores it. God forbid a military drone flying over its own base, just on a test run, is captured by the enemy. They could take all that information and then have all the information about the base that the drone consumed. Of course, this is not ideal. However, drones are still very new, and it's just goes to show how much these machines can be improved, even though they're extremely intelligent and extremely useful already. This is my references page. This was my most used reference. I kept going down and looking through all of the different ways that drones can be used, and I was very surprised with some of these ways that drones can impact society. For example, when I think of agriculture, I think of plows, tractors, kind of old school. However, I read this, and this goes to show that this tractor right here is not even manned; it's a drone, and it just goes up and forth, feeding all of the crops, and the farmer doesn't have to do anything. And like this boat is a drone going. It usually carries storage, and this just goes to show you how much drones are being used that we don't even know. And this is what fascinated me so much about my topic, that you can have drones, and if you program them to do a certain thing, they can do so many different things.